Hello and welcome to the Mindful Men podcast, a show helping men to open up about manhood. My name is Simon Rennie and my aim is to get men talking. From mental health to fatherhood and everything in between, Mindful Men creates a safe space for conversation. Now, before we get into this episode, I want to say a huge thank you for joining me. It means a world for you to join me and talk about men's issues. And if you love what you hear, please subscribe and share the episode with your mates. You can also join the conversation on Instagram and YouTube, and I'd love to connect with you there. But for now, sit back, relax, and let's get mindful. G'day guys, and welcome to another episode of the Mindful Men podcast. I'm your host, Simon Rennie, and today we're getting mindful about mental health, addiction, and suicide. On that note, a bit of a trigger warning. So if these topics do impact you in any way, feel free to skip this episode. That's not a problem at all. But if you do stick around and you do get triggered, please reach out to your support networks, whether or not that's your family, your friends, or a paid professional as well. Now, I'm really excited. I've got Tim Lodgen from Baltimore in the US. How are you going, Tim?
I'm doing good, Simon. Thank you so much for having me, man. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to our conversation.
I'm really looking forward to this. You've got a decorated resume or CV. So you're a former US Marine, an MMA fighter, and a junior Olympic boxer as well. I'm looking forward to exploring all of this in terms of how it's, molded you into the person you are today and impacted your life. But first, I'd like to start off with finding a bit about my guests and hand it over to you just to tell us a bit about where you grew up and school life. What did you do after school? And have you done any travel or any cool things in your life? Yeah, over to you.
Yeah, so I was born and raised here in Baltimore, Maryland. The only time I left was when I served in the Marine Corps. So from the time I was born and still today, I live in Baltimore. I grew up pretty much, I would say, a normal lifestyle. My father was a police officer. He retired after 37 years. But my mom, she actually was a professional bodybuilder when I was a child.
Wow.
So that's kind of not normal, but
Yeah.
there was no drugs and alcohol in my house. It was never around. I never saw any. There was none in the cabinets. There was none in the refrigerator. So I didn't grow up around any type of drugs or alcohol really in my face. Now, what did affect me as a young boy was my father and mother got a divorce when I was in first grade. So I was only 7 years old.
Yeah.
And my brother is almost 11 years older than me. So he was going into being a senior in high school, and I was just starting first grade. And the reason I mention that is because, as a young child, when your parents split up, I know I did. I took it as if I was the reason they split up.
Yeah.
Was I not a good boy? Did I not clean the room? Did I not listen enough? Was I not good in school? Like, what was the reason my dad left me at 7 years old, but he stuck around until my brother was senior in high school and graduating?
Yeah.
So I kind of took that personal, like, man, I had something to do with my father, leaving. And when after he left, him and my mom had some type of arrangement where he would come and pick me up once a month. And he would call and say, I'm coming to get you, buddy. Pack your bags. We'll spend the weekend together. And I cannot tell you how many times he would call and tell me he was coming to get me. I'd pack my bags and I'd wait at that front door. And an hour would go by, 2 hours, and then the phone would ring. Hey, I'm sorry, I can't come pick you up this weekend. Something came up.
Yeah.
That happened so many times that it got to the point where my mom said my dad was coming to get me. I would not even pack anymore. And I wouldn't wait at the front door. And I would say, he's not coming. Why am I even bothering? I really took that personally. And I held on with that from the age of 7 all the way up until my 40s. And I did use that sometimes to drink and drug. I used that as, my own father didn't love me. Who cares if I get drunk? Who cares if I get high? Or I would use that as, I'm just going to get high or drunk. My dad didn't love me. I would actually use that and justify that for use or drinking. But my mom did everything she could to raise me very, very well. That woman got 3 jobs at one point, put herself through college, got her master's degree, and ultimately became a vice president of a big company and very well took care of me. To keep me occupied, she got me into sports. So as a young kid from first grade all the way up until middle school, I played baseball for like 8 years. And then I got in the football team for a couple of years. Then I got introduced into skateboarding and I became very, very good at skateboarding. I was sponsored by a bunch of local companies down here in Maryland. And I grew up with Brandon Novak, who is from Jackass and Viva La Bam.
Yeah.
He lived like 2 streets over from me. So I always skateboarded with him. And through him, I was able to sometimes skate with Bucky Lassick. So that was kind of cool. I got to skate with some big time people back in the day. And I really enjoyed skateboarding. At the end of me stopped skateboarding, I got into high school and I was kind of like, people in high school don't skateboard. I'm just going to quit. But I still wanted to do sports. So I got into boxing. And when I got into boxing, for me, I took it to another level. I didn't just want to be on the boxing team. I wanted to excel at boxing. So I ended up doing a winning Golden Gloves champion. And then I got into the Junior Olympics where I did place third. But I was able to fight in the Junior Olympics. And the people that win the Junior Olympics are then considered for the Olympic boxing team. So that was a huge victory for me at the age of 15 years old to be fighting in the Junior Olympics. It was pretty awesome. Still, no drugs, no alcohol. I wasn't interested in any of it. When I got into ninth grade, we had like a welcome to high school freshman party, and I went, and that's the first time I ever drank alcohol, and I got very sick. I was the whole next day, I was throwing up, the whole deal. And my mom picked me up from my friend's house, and she's like, "You drank last night, didn't you?" And I said, "Yeah." She says, "Well, I'm not going to punish you because the rest of your weekend is completely ruined." But she's like, "But we're having a cookout today, and I need 50 ears of corn shucked. So here's a bag. I want you to shuck all 50 ears of this corn, and here's a bag you can throw up for the rest of the day. But I'm not going to punish you because you just done punished yourself." So that deterred me from trying alcohol again until my senior year of high school. Mm-hmm. Now, going into my senior year, the summer before senior year, I'd signed up for the United States Marine Corps. So I knew when I graduated high school, I was going into the service. So I figured, you know what, I'm going to have some fun this year. I'm going to go to some parties and I'm going to enjoy myself. I'm going to let off some steam because at the end of the year, shit's going to hit the fan. It's going to get real. So I started going to parties and I started drinking alcohol. And for me, it wasn't to fit in. I was a very popular guy in high school. I had a lot of friends. So it wasn't for me to fit in and try to be cool. I just wanted to blow off some steam. So I told myself. So I started drinking. And once I started drinking, I was kind of like, well, what else is at the party? Let me try some things because I can't do it next year. So I started smoking pot, started doing LSD, mushrooms, pain pills, and I did PCP a couple times. But it all stemmed from that first drink of alcohol. Once I got the alcohol in my system, it was fair game to whatever was at the party. I kind of thank God that at my time in where I lived, cocaine and heroin was not around because I'm sure I probably would have tried it, and who knows if I'd even be sitting here talking to you. But I tried everything else that was at the party. Whenever it was around, I would try it, and to me, again, I was like, let me get it out of my system. So I graduated high school and I joined the Marines. Once I got into the military, the drugs did stop. There was no more drugs. That was completely over. But once I graduated boot camp and I got stationed in North Carolina, as soon as we got off at 4 p.m., a bunch of us left the military base and we went to the bars, we went to the strip clubs. And the motto around the military bases were, if you're old enough to take a bullet for the country, you're old enough to have a cold beer. Mm-hmm. So they would serve us at 18, 19, 20 years old. They would just say, you can't stand there with the beer in your hand in case the authorities walked into the bar, they would get in trouble. Yeah. So they would serve us. We could drink it, but we had to sit it back down at the table and kind of act like it wasn't ours. But they would let us come back up to the barns and order whatever we wanted, shots, beer, whatever.
Is that because the age of drinking is 21 over there?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So over here it's 18. So at 18 we could do that and stand there with the beer and stuff like that.
Okay.
So, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Over here it's 21. So they would still serve us, but we just couldn't physically stand there and hold it. But they had no problem serving us. And at these bars, we would see our sergeants at the same bars. So we're 18, 19, 20 years old, looking up to guys, 27, 28, early 30s. and they would just say, we don't care how much you drink. We don't care how long you're out. Make sure you're up at 4 o'clock in the morning in formation, ready to go
Mhm.
running, ready to do what we have to do for the day. So it was kind of like, it wasn't deterred whatsoever. They didn't tell us not to do it. They just wanted to make sure that we were up and still ready to go and function for the next day. And as young men looking up to these older guys, it was kind of like, well, this is what we do. This is kind of like a badge of honor. How hard can we party, and
Mm.
how hard can we still train and get shit done? And that's what we did. It was kind of expected of us to see, how tough we were, how hard chargers we were, what could we do.
Yeah.
So that those years in the Marine Corps, I drank. It was every single day, every single day. And in '95, the unit that I was attached to, we went to Somalia for 6 months for training. Now, it
Mm.
wasn't during wartime. There was no war going on. I was never in combat, but I was in a different country, and I saw what war did to a country and the
Yeah.
people, and it did affect me. It really did. When I came back, I had about 3 months left, and then I was getting discharged. So when I came back, I had a nice, easy 3 months, and then I came home. And I came home, and the first month was great. It was kind of like, oh man, I don't have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't have to shave every day. I don't have to get my hair cut. It was kind of like a decompression month.
Mhm.
The second month came, and I kind of got the oh shit factor. Man, I got to get a job. I got to start paying a little bit bills because I'm back at my mom's house. I got to help her out. I got to get a vehicle. I got to start taking care of myself. I got to have some responsibilities. The third month came when I came home, and I fell into a deep depression.
Mhm.
I didn't want to shave anymore. I didn't want to shower. I didn't leave my room. I was drinking, and I was smoking pot again and taking pain pills because now I don't have to worry about a drug test. I fell right back into what I was doing before I was in the military. And I'm sitting in my bedroom one day, and I'm beating myself up. I'm like, how could I go from being a Marine and being in shape and not doing drugs to coming home and doing drugs again and not wanting to leave my house? And one day I go into my stepfather's armoire, and I pull his gun out, and I sit it on my lap, and I'm sitting there looking at it, and I'm contemplating using it, and I'm crying, and I call my girlfriend, and I say, hey, something's not right. I'm sitting here looking at a gun in my lap, and I'm not sure if I'm going to use it or not. And she came over within 5 minutes. She took the gun from me. And when my mom came home from work that evening, I told my mom, I said, hey, something's not right. I didn't tell her I just had my stepdad's gun in my lap. She would have freaked out, had me committed, been to the hospital and all that. But I did tell her something was wrong. I was in a depression. There's something going on here. So she said, okay, well, we need to get you to the doctors. So she made some appointments, got me into the doctors, and they diagnosed me with bipolar 1 manic depressive disorder. And their first way to handle that was to get me on medicine. And I wanted to say this because if somebody is out there and they prescribed you psychiatric medicine, you need to be honest with your doctors. I never told them I was drinking every day and smoking pot and taking pain pills and eating mushrooms. I never told them any of that. So when I went to the doctors and they put me on these specific medicines and certain milligrams, after I'd go back 30 or 60 days for a checkup, and they would ask me how the medicines were working, I would say they're not working. I don't know what's going on. I
Yeah.
still feel as bad as I did before. So their solution was, well, maybe it's the wrong medicine. We'll try these types of medicine. Maybe the milligrams weren't enough. We'll up the dose milligrams. And that would continue for that following year. I would go back every 30, 60 days for checkups, and they could never pinpoint why the medicines weren't working. And I'm telling you, it's because I was using alcohol and drugs. Plain
Mm.
and simple, the medicines are not designed to work with alcohol and drugs in your system. That went on from the age of 21 all the way up until 2021 at the age of 44 until I got sober. I
Wow.
would go on and off of medicine. They'd switch the milligrams, they'd switch the dosages, they'd switch the cocktail. I would be on it for a year. And then, as a typical bipolar person, I'd say, I don't need them anymore. I'm good to go. And I'd take myself off of them for a couple months. And then, after a couple months, have a huge crash and have to go back to the doctor and get it put back on the medicine. And that was my cycle for 20 years. It really was just on and off, not taking them, just quitting. And the entire time I'm using drugs and alcohol. So it really didn't matter what they had me on. None of it was going to work the way that they were designed to work. So through this time, I met my wife. We got married. We had our first daughter. We had our second daughter. And also through this time, I had went through 46 jobs. And that is due to my bipolar and my drug and alcohol addiction. I would get complacent at work. I wouldn't want to go back. I would call out, and then my anxiety and panic would get the best of me and say, "Oh, everybody's talking about you. What are they saying about you?" And I just wouldn't go back. My mind controlled me 100%. I did not control my thoughts. My thoughts controlled me. So I went through jobs over and over and over again my entire life. I would always go back to being a carpenter at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So that was always my passion. I'm still a carpenter today, and I've been doing that for over 20 years, but not steady. I've just done it, a year here, a year there. But
Mm-hmm.
the last 10 years, I've been a carpenter steady. For me, it makes me feel as if I accomplished something. It's like I take something that looks awful and I tear it down and rebuild it back up and make it look pretty, and it's a sense of accomplishment for me. And I really think that has helped me mentally, seeing that I could do something physically with my hands and having
Mm-hmm.
self gratification that I did that. So, we had our second daughter, and I lost my job, and I'm 32. And my wife's like, "What's going on?" And I said, I don't know. I can't work. Like, I just don't know what I want to do. She said, "What would make you happy?" And I said, I really miss competing. I really miss
Mm-hmm.
sports. I really miss going to the gym and training. I said, I think I'd like to try mixed martial arts. She said, "Well, I'll tell you what, you can take a year off." I was collecting unemployment, our bills were paid.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, "Take a year off, get some training, see if you can get some fights, see if you can make some money at it. And at the end of the year, if nothing comes out of it, you've got to let it go and you got to get a job and take care of our family." So she gave me 1 year off, and I went training. And within 6 months, I had my first fight.
Mm-hmm.
And the first fight wasn't much money. I made $300 my first fight. Um, but that 1 year ended up turning into 3 years.
Wow.
And I fought all up and down the East Coast. I fought in Harris Casino, Atlantic City. My last fight, I was fighting on local television in Philadelphia, and it was in front of 3,000 people at Harris Casino Resort, and it was awesome. Coming out to those lights and everybody screaming your name is probably a better feeling than any drugs or alcohol has ever given me in my entire life. That euphoric feeling that you get of coming out and knowing you're about to step into a cage with somebody, embracing that fight or flight experience that we
Mm.
have, made me feel so alive, so alive. And that fight didn't go so good. I tore my rotator cuff, and I had to get major surgery. So at the end of the fight, I go into my locker room, and I'm like, I can't put my shirt on. And my trainer's like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "I can't lift my right arm." So he had to help me put my shirt on. Once he helped me put my shirt on, I go out to the lobby where everybody's sitting, and my wife's like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, I can't lift my right arm. Something is wrong. And she's like, "Oh my God. Okay, well, you're done." She's like, "You're 35. You've been doing it for 3 years. You're done. We got to go to the doctor to see what's going on." So go to the doctor, and he confirms I tore my rotator cuff in 3 places, and I have to have major surgery. So that started a 4 year long prescription pill
Mm-hmm.
addiction prescribed to me from the doctors. And, we're talking 10 years ago. So they didn't have in place what they do now, where they only give you a little bit, then you have to go see a pain management clinic,
Mm-hmm.
and they really look over how much you're taking and when you're taking. I could just simply go to my primary physician and say, "I need more medicine." And every 30 days I would go back, and it started with the hydrocodones.
Mm-hmm.
And I go back after 30 days. He said, "How you feeling?" "Oh, well, the hydrocodones aren't really working that good." "Okay, well, we'll switch you to Percocets." Then I'd go back after 30 days. How the Percocets working? Well, they're working pretty good, but the Percocets always made my stomach all crampy and made me kind of feel sick. Okay, we'll put you on Oxycontins. So I ended up putting on Oxycontins, and he would give me a 90-day prescription. And like every good addict, I wouldn't take one every 4 hours. I was taking two and three every four
Mm.
hours, and I was running through my prescription about halfway through, and then I'd have to go and call my buddies on the street to give me what I needed to hold me over till my doctor filled my prescription. And on top of this, I was drinking a 12 pack of beer a day and smoking about a quarter of weed without fail for 4 years. It got to a point where I got scared. I legitimately got scared. And I remember telling myself, this is how people die. I'm going to take this medicine and drink this beer one night. And I'm not going to freaking wake up the next morning, and I'm not going to know anything better because I've been doing it for so long. I'm just thinking everything's going to be okay. And I'm sitting there looking at my bottle, and I'm like, man, you know what? I'm not going to die in my sleep. If I'm going to die from addiction, I'm going to do it myself. And I reach over and I grab the bottle of Oxycontins and I dump them out of my hand, and I counted them. I had 18 of them. I took all 18 of them, and I went out into the living room and I sat for about 45 minutes to an hour and I guzzled a 12 pack of beer. And I go into the bedroom and I lay down, and I remember saying, please, God, don't let me wake up because I don't want the pain to hurt anymore. I just can't stand the pain anymore. And I pass out. And I wake up the next day. I was like 16 hours later. And I wake up the next day and I'm like, oh my God, I'm alive. Like, why am I here? What the hell just happened? And I go into the bathroom where my refill was sitting of 30, and I open the bottle and I dump all 30 of them down the toilet. And I look at myself in the mirror and I tell myself, I don't care how bad this gets. We're never taking pain medicine again. And for the next 10 days of my life, I was probably the sickest I think I've ever been, ever. The insomnia, the sweats, the throwing up, the jitters, the fevers, the going to the bathroom, the racing thoughts. Just, I went through the whole gambit of emotions for 10 days. But every morning when I woke up, I would tell myself, don't forget this feeling. We're never doing this again. I haven't touched pain medicine since. I think it's been 6 to 7 years now. I've touched any pain medicine. I take Motrin or Advil for anything, and that's
Mm-hmm.
that's where I go, and that's it. But when I stopped taking the pain medicine, when I was so used to it, now I'm missing something. I'm like, well, I'm used to my pain pills, my alcohol, and my weed. Well, now I'm kind of missing part of my trifecta there,
Mm-hmm.
because I had my little cocktail I was used to. So I'm sitting home one day and I'm like, man, I need to clear my head. I need to go for a ride and really just think about what's going on. And I get in my truck and I go driving through this beautiful park we have down here in Maryland. And I'm driving through it and I get to this tree where my senior year of high school, my best friend unfortunately lost control of his
Mm-hmm.
car and hit the tree and lost his life at the age of 18. And at this tree, his parents set up a little memorial. It's got a picture of him hanging on the tree, and you can put flowers up against it. And there's still today a book that you can write to, and,
Mm-hmm.
and they change the book out every couple of years so you can continue to write to him. He died December 27th, 1996. So this is March 16th, 2017, 21 years later, when I go and ride through this park. And I go up to the tree and I'm like, Bill, I'm lost, man. I'm like, I'm an alcoholic. I'm an addict. I don't know why I'm here. I have no purpose. Please send me a sign that I'm not alone, that there's something else out there because I truly don't know why I'm here. Um, please just send me a sign. I need to know that there's something else out there besides me. And I get in my truck and I go to leave the park. And as I'm leaving the park, I'm like crying at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just, I don't know why I lived. I don't know why I'm here. I'm completely lost. And I pull over to park because I can't really see. I'm crying, and I park the vehicle. But instead of parking on the right hand side as we drive, I pull over on the left hand side on oncoming traffic, and I park my vehicle. About 10 minutes goes by, and this car pulls up,
Mm-hmm.
and I see a man getting out of his vehicle, and he opens the back door, and he's getting his dog out, and he's about to go walk across to where the water is. And I'm looking at this man, and I'm like, man, he looks awfully familiar. And then all of a sudden it dawned on me. It was my best friend who died in 1996. It was his father.
Wow.
It was the first time I had seen him in 21 years since the day of my friend's funeral. And I get out and I'm like, Mr. Bill. I was like, is that you? And he said, he looks at me and goes, Timmy. He said, what's going on? Are you okay? And I fall to the curb and I start crying. I'm an alcoholic. I'm an addict. I don't know why I'm here. I just, I'm lost. And he walks over to me and he puts his hand on my shoulder and he says, Timmy, I'm not supposed to be here this morning. I'm supposed to be in South Carolina at a family reunion trip. My wife came to me in a dream last night and told me to come here this morning at 10 a.m. to walk the dog. I think I was sent here to see you. And I
Mm.
said, Mr. Bill, I just stopped at Billy's tree and asked him for a sign that I wasn't alone, that there's something else out here. And he said, Tim, I think we were here today together to see, to show you that. And we hugged and we talked for about 15 minutes. And as I'm leaving the park, I have about a 5 to 10 minute sensation of everything's going to be okay. I'm here for a reason. I'm being watched. Nothing's going to happen to me. And I remember as soon as I say nothing's going to happen to me, my mental illness and my addiction step in and say, you're right. Nothing is going to happen to you. So you don't have to stop drinking because you're being watched over. You're being protected.
Mm.
Everything's going to be okay. So for the next 4 years, I drank the most I have ever drank in my entire life. And the beer got to a point where it wasn't enough for me. I stopped drinking beer and I went drinking Fireball whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
And again, my mental illness stepped in and says, don't buy a big bottle because then you'll really be able to know how much you're drinking during the day. Just buy the little miniatures because you can drink them and throw them away and kind of forget how
Mm-hmm.
much you've drank throughout the day. So I started off with getting like 4 or 5 of them and drinking my beer. And then all of a sudden it got to the point where there was no more beer involved. I would stop in the morning at 7 o'clock when the liquor store opened. I would get 10 miniatures in a sleeve, they call it. And you get 10 of them at once. And I would drink all 10 of them before 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And then I'd get off at work at 3:30 and I'd pick up my other 10 on the way home from work. I'd drink 4 or 5 of them driving home. I would finish the other 4 or 5, whatever was left over, by 8 o'clock at night. And then I'd find myself back at the liquor store getting another 10. It got to the point where the last year of my drinking, which finally got me into rehab, I was drinking 25 to 30 miniature Fireball whiskeys every single day.
Wow.
And for one day, I kind of was like, I wonder how much alcohol is in here. So I took a miniature and I poured it out. Each miniature is 2.5 shots. So if you times 2.5 by 25 to 30, I was drinking upwards of 65 to 80 shots of Fireball whiskey every single day. And what got me into rehab is I get a new truck and I'm coming home from the liquor store after getting my sleeve of Fireball and I hit something. And I remember walking in the front door and telling my wife, I just hit something. I'm going to bed. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
even dealing with it right now. I'm going to bed. So I go to sleep. And I wake up the next morning like a good alcoholic and I say, good morning. I'm going to the store getting some milk and bread and water. Would you guys need anything else? And she looks at me and she's like, how are you going to do that? And I say, in my brand new truck in the driveway. The truck was only 2 months old. In
Mm.
my truck. And she's like, go outside and look at your truck, Tim. So I go outside. My passenger mirror is completely gone. It's not even on the truck anymore. And my front right passenger tire is hanging off the rim and the rim's all bent in. I honestly don't even know how I drove it into my house. The liquor store is about a block and a half. So I think that's how I made it. I was like, I got to get home. I got to get home. But I don't remember. And I'm sitting there looking at my truck and my wife pops her head out the door and she says, you don't remember what you hit, do you? And I said, no. She said, Tim, you could have killed yourself. You could have killed somebody last night. You can't stay here anymore. I don't want you around the children.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to leave and go figure this out, but I don't want you in the house anymore. So I packed my bags and I call my buddy and I'm like, hey, can I come to your house for a couple of days? Let things blow over. In a couple of days, she'll let me back in. Just let things cool down. And I go to his house and he's like, well, you got kicked out of your house. You can't go home. We might as well go to the bar, man, and have some
Mm.
drinks. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, because now I have a reason to go drink. I'm justifying my
Yeah.
alcoholism. Yeah, now we can go. So we go to the bar, we start drinking, do shots, drinking, and I get completely drunk. And less than 12 hours later of me hitting something, as I'm leaving the bar with my friend, I rear end somebody at a red light. And I get out and I'm looking at the truck, and the front of my truck's all smashed in, but this guy had a tow hitch on the back of his vehicle. So his truck actually was fine. It was completely okay, but the whole front of my bumper was smashed in. And I look at him, I'm like, "Are you okay?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm okay." I said, "Your truck's okay. You're okay." And I slapped him on his back and I got in my truck and I took off.
Mm-hmm.
If the cops came, I was going to jail for DUI. My truck was getting towed. I was getting in a lot of trouble. So I took off. I get back to my buddy's house and I'm like, "Man, I got to be by myself. I can't stay here. I got to leave. I'm going somewhere." So I leave his house. I stop at the liquor store. I get 10 more Fireball miniatures. And I go and I park my truck at a park and ride where people park for the day and jump
Mm-hmm.
on a train and go to
Yep.
work. And I park there and I turn my phone off because at this point, I didn't want to hear from anybody. I didn't want nobody to bother me. I just wanted to be by myself and drink and pass out. And for the next 2 days, 48 hours, I sat in my truck with the phone off, listening to sad ass music on the radio in my truck and drinking and passing out and drinking and passing out and drinking and passing out. And finally, the second day came and I'm drunk and I'm cold and I'm hungry, I'm tired. And I turned my phone on after having it off for 2 days. And it's 7 after 10 in the morning, March 5th, 2021. And 2 minutes later, my phone rings. And I look down at it and it says Westchester, PA. And I'm like, I don't know who this is. So I just pick it up. And it's Brandon Novak on the other line.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, Lodgen, what the F are you doing? And I'm like, I'm cold, I'm hungry, I'm tired, and I'm drunk. And he says, good. That's what you need. He's like, I just talked to your mom and your wife. I have a plane ticket set for you this evening at 8 o'clock. You're going to go down to Banyan Treatment Centers in West Palm Beach, Florida, and you're going to go get help. Get on that plane. He said, call me when you pass security. I want to make sure you're getting on the plane and not catching the cab and leaving the airport after you get dropped off. So I'm like, yeah, okay, man. Okay, I'll go. I'll go. I'm just kind of like agreeing with him just so
Mm-hmm.
I can hang up the phone. And I hang up the phone, and like 10 minutes goes by, and my wife calls, and she's like, I just got off the phone with Brandon. Please come home and pack and shower and try to eat something and take a little nap. I had about 4 hours till the plane left. So I go home and I shower and I pack my bags. I couldn't eat and I couldn't sleep. I'm in full anxiety mode and panic mode. My mind's racing. And I'm like, how in the hell did I let my life get this bad that I have to go to rehab? How long am I going for? I don't know, 30, 60, 90 days, 6 months. I had no
Mm-hmm.
idea. I can't believe my life has gotten this bad. And then the thoughts of my kids are better off without me. My wife's better off without me. I'm such a piece of shit. Nobody, I don't deserve to live. I put everybody through so much hell over these years and I could never get my stuff together. And as I'm sitting there on the edge of my bed, thoughts are racing through my head. My my addiction steps in one last time and says, "Come with me," and it takes my hand and walks me into the basement of my home. And I throw a rope around my neck and I step up on a bucket and it says, "Just end the pain. Just end the pain." And I listen and I go and I put a rope around my neck and I stand up on a bucket and I go to the basement of my home and I think about a minute goes by and my wife realizes I'm not in the bedroom anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And she comes down to the basement of the steps and she sees me in the corner of the basement, hysterically crying with a rope around my neck, standing on a bucket. And she just looks at me and says, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I can't do it. I just want the pain to stop. I don't know how to stop it. I just want it to stop." And she says, "Tim, do you know what this would do to your little girls? Please, please get down. Get on that plane. Everything is going to be okay. Just get down." And I get down and I fall to the floor and I cry and I go upstairs and I call my friend. I'm like, "Hey, Brandon," I'm like, I'm getting on that plane, man. I got to. If I don't get on that plane this evening, my addiction and my mental illness is going to kill me.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't have that. I got to get on the plane. And all he says is, I'm proud of you. I love you. Call me when you pass security. So my mom comes and takes me to the airport and drops me. And I get past security and I call my friend. I'm like, hey, I got 30 minutes till the plane leaves. I just want to let you know I'm past security. I'm getting on the plane and I'm going. And all he says is, I'm proud of you. I love you. You're about to get back everything that you've lost times 10. And he hangs up the phone. As I go to sit down in the seat, waiting for them to board the plane, as I sit down in this seat at the airport, I get this overwhelming feeling of hope
Mm-hmm.
that comes over my entire body. It was a warm blanket feeling that I have never felt in my entire life. At that exact moment, all my panic left my body, my anxiety, my fear, my depression, my sadness. And at the same time, I hear this common woman's voice in my head. And it just simply says, everything is going to be okay. I truly believe that day at that airport that I had a spiritual experience. When I got on that plane and I got to rehab, I got there and I took it as life and death. Those worries and fears that I had going into the airport were gone. I took rehab so seriously. I didn't miss any meetings. I went to extra meetings for military veterans and first responders. I shared my story. I volunteered. I started working out with a personal trainer Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I changed my diet. I told myself if I was going to do this, I'm going to do it mentally, spiritually, and physically. I'm not going to half ass it. I'm going to go and do this correctly. And when I got to the rehab and the doctors took all my tests, they called me into the office and they're like, how old are you? I'm like, I'm 44. And he says, Tim, your liver and kidneys are 4 times what they should be. Your blood pressure is 165 over 147. You're at the verge of having a stroke.
Mm-hmm.
He said, if you were to continue to drink like this for the next 3 months, you would have not make it to the age of 47. You would have died of alcoholism disease. He said, you came at the exact time needed to save your life. When he said that, I stopped believing in coincidences. There's no way that all of this happened at the exact same time for it needed to save my life.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first got there, I did the why did I have to go through 27 years when there's some people in here after 6 months or 5 years or 3 years, whatever their journey was. Why did I have to go through 27 years? And the more that I went to meetings, the more that I read about my mental illness, the more I read about addiction, and I educated myself. And the more I prayed and started to believe in a higher power greater than myself, I realized that 27 years didn't happen to me. It happened for me. It happened for me to understand how truly precious this life is that we have, how grateful I am each and every day to wake up and to have people that love me and have people that I love around me and that support me. And my perspective on life has completely changed 100%. I used to be the glass half empty, like, where's the rest of my drink? I need
Yep.
some more ice in there, let it fill over. And now I'm just so happy that there's something in that drink to quench my thirst. I'm so grateful that there's something in there that I have to give back. I have to let people know that no matter how dark it gets, no matter how much the pain seems as if there's no way out, I'm here to tell you that we can recover. We can get the help that we need, and we can ultimately live the life that we've always wanted to live. I lost hope several times, and it almost took my life. But hope exists. And if we hold on to hope, we hold on to faith, we can accomplish anything and we can come out on top no matter how bad our life has been. And we can turn that page and start a brand new chapter in our life. I'm so thankful to be alive. I'm so thankful that I can share my story on podcast to reach people out there that need to hear this message of hope. And Today I celebrate 18 months clean and sober after 27 years of active addiction. It's truly a gift that was given to me, and I know that, and I have to give it back so freely. It was given to me with nothing expected back, and I want to do the same thing for people, and I want to show them that we're here for you. You're not alone. Don't be ashamed of what's going on. Don't be embarrassed. You need to speak about it, and there's people out there that care, and we can help you. And I thank you for people who have podcasts that allow me to come on and share my story. We reach so many people around the world. It's so amazing that you're doing this and allow people to come on and share our story, because we never know who's listening at the exact time that they
Mm.
need to hear this, that it could possibly save their life. And I'm so grateful for you having me on here, and I really appreciate it. So I just wanted to say that for you. And today is my 60th, with you right now is my 60th podcast that I've done in 18 months. And it's my 18-month anniversary, and I couldn't think of a better way to celebrate it today. So thank you so much, Simon, for letting me
Oh
share with you
wow.
my story.
Mate, I nearly cried a few times in that in that story. It's like stuff that like movies are made of. Like it is a powerful story of hurt and pain and growth, but also perseverance and strength and resilience and so forth. But what does it feel like to tell your story? You've just let loose for a good almost an hour, right? And a lot of guys, particularly guys, struggle to talk and open up and get vulnerable. And this is the whole purpose of Mindful Men, is to be mindful of who we are and talk and start growing into the person that we want to be. So what's it like to let it all out and talk about it?
And it has helped me with my mental health tremendously. Um, you know, I've been told I'm one of those, alpha men that I was in the Marines, I was a fighter, and I'm competing for a bodybuilding show in 2 months. I do all this alpha men stuff. And then they hear me speak, and I'm so open about my emotions and what I've went through. And at first I was kind of, man, I don't know if I really want to share to everybody. I just shared in rehab with the people that were
Mhm.
there. And but the more I went to meetings, and the more I heard people's stories, and the more that their story impacted me and helped me to grow, and me seeing these older gentlemen who have lived through, world wars, and like the stuff that I couldn't even touch with a 10-foot pole, and they're sharing their stories, and they're up there crying. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. When we're dealing with something traumatic or sad or emotional, we need to let it out.
Mm.
We need to let that. Every time I speak, it's like another piece of the old me is lifted off of my shoulders. It's a release. It makes me feel better about myself. It makes me feel happy. It makes me feel as if I'm doing something right for the right reasons without expecting something back.
Mhm.
Every time I speak, I feel as if I'm becoming a better and better man. And that whole thing about, you're a man, you shouldn't show your feelings, you shouldn't cry, is such bullshit. It takes a strong man and a courageous man to share his feelings and to share his story and to cry. And that's true bravery right there.
Mm. And you've touched on something there. You mentioned before being the alpha male, and you were into skateboarding, then you're into boxing. You've been in the U.S. Marines, MMA. Your body and your mind has gone through hell for a lot of your life, and even in Australia here, like I grew up in the '90s, northern suburbs of Adelaide, working class. There was four boys in the house. We all played footy, and we were all taught, to be a man is to be tough. You don't show emotions. We were probably alpha males as well at age. I'm not so much an alpha male anymore. I'm a bit softer these days, but yeah, we are taught not to cry and not to show emotions, and we bottle things up, and And for a long time, so my mental health journey was something that I bottled up for 20 years and I didn't tell anybody really about it. There was probably signs that it was there, depression, anxiety, and obsessive compulsive disorder. But it wasn't until I started to open up and I stepped into my GP's office and said, I think I have mental health issues. And I got medication. And then I went on through different psychologists and counselors and so forth, that I started to learn a lot more about me as to what makes me tick, or what makes me upset, how I need to get help, the things I need to do to feel well as well. And it's 10 years this year for me since I walked into that GP's office. And every time I feel, rough around the edges or need help, I go, yep, I need some support. Go get some meds, look at my meds, go do some counseling and so forth. And it gets easier every time. And you mentioned that you've done 60 podcasts now. So thanks for me being your 60th. It's great to tick off that magic number. But and as you're saying, it gets easier as you talk more about it. And I think this is a great message for anybody out there, particularly guys, is that the more you do open up, if you're an alpha male, or not so much an alpha male, that it does get easier, and you can start to see life from new perspectives as well, and learn a bit more about us as we grow and get older, and do things that fill our cup as opposed to depleting our cup as well. Thank you so much for sharing your story. It must be a hard thing to keep revisiting, but also one, as you said, that does support your journey forward, and gives you hope to help other people as well. So thank you.
Absolutely. And I don't live in the past, but if I forget about it, then my past will become my future again.
Hmm.
And I don't want that to ever happen. I have three beautiful daughters, and I now have two grandsons,
Wow.
4 years old and 3 months old. And I'm only 46, and I got two grandsons, but it's cool. Um, my daughter the other day said to me, she's like, "Dad, I'm so glad that you're healthy and sober, and that my little boys can grow up with you as a mentor and a role model." And she said, "I'm so proud of you for getting your life together, and that they're going to have somebody to look up to." And I said, "So am I." I was like, and if I have anything to do with it, those little boys will never see their grandfather abuse drugs or alcohol. And I know it's taboo to say never, but to be honest with you, since that day in the airport, I haven't thought about drugs. I haven't thought about alcohol. It hasn't crossed my mind. The urge, I believe, was taken from me. I haven't wanted it. I haven't looked at it. I haven't. It actually kind of disgusts me now.
Hmm.
Um, and it's funny because you still go to family cookouts and get-togethers, and the first hour or two is usually okay for me. But after that second hour, when people are still drinking, it's kind of like you can see the switch in the people after the second hour, and they're on their third or fourth or fifth drink. And that's usually when my wife looks at me and she's like, "Is it time to go?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's
Yeah.
time to go," because I can see the switch in people and I don't want to be around it.
Yeah. What does it mean to you to be a dad and a granddad as well? Deep down inside, how does it make you feel?
Being a dad, I didn't necessarily take it that serious in the beginning because I was in my active addiction, and I missed a lot of opportunities. I missed a lot of hugs and kisses with my children. And thank God I was never a physically abusive father. I never put my hands on anybody, but I said some nasty shit. I really did, and some hurtful things to my children that probably a child should not hear from their parent. And that's one of the hardest things that I do have to live with is, that old saying, "Sticks and stones might break my wounds, but words will never hurt me." That's such bullshit because words stick with you forever, and they cut deep.
Mm.
And I would like to say I wished having my children changed me, but then I wouldn't become the person I am today, which allows me to be so grateful to be a granddad. I now know the importance of a male role model in the life of a child,
Mm.
and to show them that it's okay to be in touch with your feelings, to show them it's okay to share. Now, I'm completely open with all three of my daughters. They know dad went to rehab. They know dad does these recovery and mental health podcasts. They know I've been to different states and I speak about mental health and addiction awareness. and I speak to them about, no matter what's going on in your life, come to me, talk to me. We can get through it. Everything gets better. It always does. Don't let something bring you down. Don't be sad about it. Talk about it. Let's talk about it and work through it. And being the granddad, that has transformed me. I wish I could say the dad transformed me, but seeing that little grandson of mine look at me and call me pop, and I get to play with them. I grew up with three girls, man. I couldn't play with the cool stuff that my grandson play with. Play with guns, and we do Legos, and build forts and stuff, and it's a bond that I cherish so deeply. I really, truly do, and I'm so grateful to be a happy, healthy father and grandfather.
Yeah. And it's a great point to highlight is that no matter how dark our days do get, and they do get pretty dark, and you've been in the probably the darkest days I've heard personally, is that I always come back to in my darkest days, like I put my head on the pillow and I didn't want to wake up anymore. Like my OCD was just that bad that I wasn't sleeping properly. I was had depression and anxiety. I put my head in the pillow and I didn't want to wake up. But then something in my brain said, Simon, the sun always rises tomorrow. And I don't know where this came from. I've never heard it before. But I took this as a moment to go, okay, well, the sun is a warm, new birth type thing. And for me, so whenever I do get to those dark days, I picture this thought in my head and it pushes me through. And then those dark days can last, for you, 27 years. For me, it was 20 years before I opened up, and then all of a sudden I started to feel the warmth from that sun, and the sun was bright again, and I could see new positivity in my life again. And it just highlights your story is that recovery is possible, that things do get better. And along the way, you mentioned a few times that your addiction was trying to tell you stuff and try to pull you in certain directions, and mental illness and addiction does that. It tries to lead us down the wrong pathway. It tries to trick us. OCD is one of those conditions that I talk to regularly about with people, is that it tries to trick us into even thinking that we don't have OCD. And so you keep in these cycles. But once you start to talk about things and maybe medication or counseling for some people, you learn to not listen to those voices and realize that recovery is possible, that things do get better. The sun will rise tomorrow. And I think I'm telling you this story because you've got a yellow T-shirt on. So,
Yeah, that says
oh,
hope.
there we go. I love it. But yeah, I mean, it
Yeah,
is such a powerful story, and I love hearing about the fact that this relationship you have now with your grandson, and what it means to be a pop and to be a dad as well. As
yes,
dads, we think that we need to have it all worked out and we need to be perfect, but in reality, sometimes we struggle. I mean, you've struggled a lot more than most people, but dads struggle, and we're not that perfect father figure all the time. But I think this is a great story to reflect on, that when we do own our own shit, sometimes, and it can take a long time to own it and realize that, okay, what we're doing is hurting people, not just ourselves, is that we can then repair relationships and then walk on a path where we can be that positive role model that we always dreamt of being when we first become a father and a grandfather as well. So I'm glad that you're on this pathway now, and things are well, and you're having these good family times as well. But I wanted to touch on your wife. She sounds like the most amazing, strong partner that you could imagine. Can you tell us a bit about her, and how you met, and your relationship, and how things have impacted her?
yeah. No, my wife is my best friend. Um, that woman has stuck with me, where many, many would have left. I've put her through so much hell, and she just continues to love me and support me. And I'm truly a blessed man to have her by my side. I actually, we grew up together, lived in the same county, and we went to the same middle school and high school. But we were just friends. We just would see each other at school or whatever. And then when I came home from the Marines, she just happened to be at one of my friends' parties, and I was like, "Hey, how you doing?" She's like, "Doing good." I was like, "Yeah, what's going on?" And we got to talking. She was single. I was just coming home from the Marines, and we started talking. And 2 years later, we buy a house, and a year after that, we had our first daughter. And then 4 years after that, we get married, and we've been together since 1996. So she has been through everything with
Mm.
me. And I asked her 6 months into my sobriety. We were home alone watching TV or something, and I said, "Can I ask you something?" I said, why did you stick with me? Why didn't you leave me?" And she says, "Tim, because I loved you when you didn't love yourself. I knew that you could be the man that I once married, and I support you until the day I die." And I can never repay her for that. The only thing that I know I can do is stay sober one more day and one more day, and hopefully give her give her the life that she's always deserved, and make her happy. Because I don't know if I could have done this without her. I really don't. Having a support system for me has been huge. If I was single or by myself and had no kids, I honestly don't know how harder that would have been. I'm assuming it's extremely hard to be by yourself with no help. But she just. I got to rehab, and she had snuck a little card in my suitcase, and it just said, "I love you. I'm so proud of you, and we will be here waiting for you when you get home." And those words, "We will be here waiting for you." They never gave up on me. I gave up on myself, but they never gave up on me. They saw what I believe now people see, and I see finally when I look in the mirror is, you know, I, I've had this person inside of me. I always have, but it's been it's been drowned by drugs and alcohol, and that person no longer exists, and I'm so proud of that, and I'm so proud that I can show my wife that everything that she went through, everything that she backed me up with, and continued to support me is all worth it, and I'm not going to let her down. I'm not going to let myself down, and I'm sure as hell not going to let my kids or grandkids down.
Yeah. So what's next for you, mate? Like, what's on the horizon? What have you got planned coming up?
So the end of this month, I'm flying out to California, September 22nd through the 25th. I'm going to speak in front of 300 veterans and first responders, fire,
Mhm.
police, and EMTs on mental health and addiction awareness. And then October, I am going to Las Vegas for a mental health summit. They would like me to come out there and speak. And then November, I now just partnered with Empower to Empower,
Mhm.
and they want me to come to Vancouver to speak in November on their inaugural speaking event for mental health and addiction. So I have those three booked as of now, and then I'll be a feature speaker for Men's Mindful Health Summit hosted by Positive Impact TV. And first, I was just going to be a speaker, and I filled out all the application. Whenever she came back, she said, "Yeah, we would love to have you." And like last week, she emailed me. She said, "Hey, do you mind going on last?" And I said, "No, I don't. I can go first, last, middle. I don't care." She goes, "No, we want you to go on last. We want you to be the feature speaker." And I'm like,
Wow.
"Oh my god, that is so man." You couldn't have told me this when I was in rehab that my life would change this much. That I'd be speaking and sharing my story and having all these opportunities to speak and share my story. I would have told you you're freaking crazy. There's no way possible. So it's just amazing to me. And I'm competing in a first on stage bodybuilding competition in November. November 4th is my first on stage and actual in front of people wearing pretty much nothing but a damn bikini. So I'm gonna have to get over that little part. But
Is your
I've
mum
always
still
wanted to do.
bodybuilding as well?
No, she's 73 now, but she still exercises 3 days a week. She still eats properly. She still takes very good care of herself. And again, that's something I've always wanted to do,
Mhm.
but drugs and alcohol have always gotten in the way. Now that I'm mentally, physically, and spiritually right, and I'm positive, and I'm determined and focused. I'm going to do it, and I don't know if I'll do it more than once. All I know is I want to do it and say that I did it. I don't even have to win. Like I told my mom, I said, I don't even have to come in 10th place. I said, just the fact that I'm doing it and I'm focused and I'm committed and I get up there, I feel as if I won.
Mm.
I feel as if I made a huge accomplishment in my life. And 2 months ago, I came in third place for the Muscle and Fitness Men's Magazine competition. And I was kind of bummed about that, man. I was like, man, first place was $25,000. You get a 2-page spread in the magazine. Like, and I was kind of sad for a day or two. And my mom calls me up. She's like, son, she's like, do you know how many people were in that competition? Do you know how many people wish they were third place? She's like, especially after everything that you've been through. She said, I just need you to know how proud I am of you and how much I love you. And to me, you're a winner, son. You really did it. So as soon as she hung up the phone with me, I kind of teared up a little bit, and I was like, you know what? She's absolutely right. From where
Mm.
I came from to where I am now, and how focused I am on things, it's nothing short of a miracle, Simon. It really is. It's a goddamn miracle, and I have faith now in something more than myself, which I never did before, and
Mhm.
that's a huge part of my recovery.
Yeah. So let's just touch on that before I let you go. Is what does faith mean to you, and how has it helped you through? And when did it come into your life?
In rehab,
Mhm.
I so I grew up in a Catholic family. Um, we would we would go to church every once in a while. It wasn't an every Sunday thing, but we most definitely have to go on church Easter
Mhm.
and Christmas. That was my mom's like, we're not missing Easter and Christmas, but every once in a while she would like, come on guys, let's just go to church for the day. And so it wasn't like we didn't grow up Catholic household. I always thought there was something else out there, you know. And growing up in a Catholic household, you hear about Jesus and God, and you know the stories, and so I always wanted to believe in that. But as I got deep into my addiction, I didn't believe anything like that could possibly exist if there were people like me out there suffering so bad. Because if somebody loved me so much, how could he let me suffer so much? So there was a long time where I was like, there's nothing there. Like there's no possible way. And so I dismissed it. And when I got into rehab, there was this gentleman by the name of Zach that I met in rehab. And when I first got there, I thought he was strange. He would walk around every morning and read the Bible and literally do like 5 miles a day around the compound, just reading the Bible. And he wouldn't come up to you and preach anything. He wouldn't ask you to listen to a sermon. He would none of that. He would never push it upon you. And one day I was just like, hey man, I see you walking around every day. What are you reading? He goes, oh, I'm reading the Bible. You know, he said, it helps me to get through this, you know. And he just started talking to me about God. And I'm like, okay, well, he goes, I see you're kind of on the fence about that. And I'm like, yeah, I am. I said, but I do think there's something out there. I just don't know
Mm.
exactly what it is. And so one day he comes to me and he said, hey, I do this morning meeting before our actual meetings start at the facility. He said, we meet at 8 o'clock in the morning and we do about a 20-minute reading. He said, and then you can go eat your breakfast and then go to your first class at 9 o'clock. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll come tomorrow morning and just see what you got going on. So I woke up the next morning and I go, and he's like, thank you for coming. You're the first person that told me they were going to show up and actually showed up. And there was about five of us standing around. And he opens the book up, and it's nothing out of the Bible. It was daily reflections, a word for the day, and then a short prayer at the end of it. And it wasn't really God or Jesus based. It was more
Mhm.
generalization of prayer. And he opens up the thing, and the first word is hope. And he says, we're going to talk about hope today. And I'm just like, I'm looking up. I'm like, this can't, like, this is not a coincidence. Like, you have got to be kidding me. And he read the daily reflection for the day, and then he read the prayer. And at the end of it, I was like, I'll see you tomorrow morning, man. I'm going to come back. And for the next 2 weeks, I went every morning. At the end of those 2 weeks, he was actually getting out. He was there about 2 weeks ahead of me. So I still had 2 weeks to go. And he's like, look, he said, I appreciate everybody coming this morning. He's like, but I'm leaving today. And he goes, and I really don't want to take this book with me. I see how it helps people in the morning, and I would like to leave this book here at the rehab center and pass it on. He said, and I have to pick somebody to share the message each and every day of hope, strength, and courage. And there's about 10 of us there now. And he looks over to me and he passed me on the shoulder and he hands me the book. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, Tim, he's like, I see the way you are around here. He said, people follow you, people listen to you. He said, you're a natural born leader. He said, I want you to lead them for the next 2 weeks. And he said, and the day before you leave, you find somebody to carry the message. I want this message to keep going. And for the next 2 weeks, I did that morning meeting. And one of the mornings, it was pouring down raining. It was absolutely horrible. And I'm like, man, we only need 15 minutes to read this. I really wish it would stop raining. And I am not kidding you, Simon. Within like 30 seconds of me saying, I really wish it would stop raining so I could read this, it freaking stopped raining. I was able to read the daily reflection, the small prayer, and the word of the day. And I swear to you, as soon as I was done reading, the clouds came back and it started raining again. And I was like, holy hell. I was like, this is not a coincidence. This is just too amazing to be a coincidence. I don't believe in them anymore. This is happening for a reason. It's too much. And then I get out of rehab and I go to go look for a home group, for my classes. And I pick one that's like 10 minutes from my house. I'm like, I'm just going to go there. It's close. I'll go to the house. And I go there and it's called Over the Rainbow. So I walk in and there's about 30, 40 people there. And I sit down and 5 minutes goes by and it starts pouring down raining. And all of a sudden this lady walks in and she says, everybody come outside and look at the rainbow over our building. And I go outside and the rain had stopped and there was a rainbow just over our meeting house. And I literally threw my hands up. I was like, okay, I get it. Okay, I get it. I know what you're saying. This is my place. This is where I need to be. So faith has been huge for me. You have to believe in something greater than yourself. I truly believe if you don't, you'll be lost in this world. I don't know what it is. I don't know who it is. I hope it's my loved ones and my friends that have passed on that look over me and guide me and make sure that I'm here to accomplish what I'm put here to do. Because I truly believe we're all here for a purpose now, and we have something that we need to finish before they call upon us to go wherever our next journey is. Which I still don't know where it is, but I want to make sure that I do what I'm supposed to do here now because I've wasted 3/4 of my life, and I don't want to waste any more of it.
Yeah. Wow. What a story. And it's a great reflection that when we're healing, we can heal both mind, body, and soul as well. And there's a whole world of different perspectives on that. Some people believe in that type of stuff. Other people don't believe in that stuff. And sometimes things come into our life in random and unusual ways, like the rain stopping or the rainbow,
Yeah.
you know. And it's moments like that where we become mindful, okay, maybe, yeah, I'm part of something bigger here. Or maybe this is my purpose, or this is the group that I'm meant to be with, or whatever. Yeah, it's just an amazing story. So Tim, thank you so much for sharing your story for me today, and on the 60th episode for you.
Yes.
Is there a way that people can contact you if they're keen to invite you to be a guest speaker, or how can people follow you?
Yeah, so my main platform is Instagram, and that's at T Lodgen. That's where I post all of my podcasts, all of my speaking, all of my fitness journey and stuff there. And I am on Facebook under Timothy Lodgen, but I that's kind of like my family and friends kind of thing. I do post recovery stuff. I do post my podcast, but the Instagram is where I met the people in recovery. I met the mental health and recovery
Mhm.
pages, and that's where I truly believe my group is.
Yeah.
And when I first went on Instagram when I got out of rehab, I had 352 followers, and this morning I have 112,000 followers.
Wow.
And again, I cannot explain that other than it's meant to be, and this is what I'm meant to be doing. So if they need to follow me at Lodgen on Instagram, my messages are completely open. I answer everybody. This week alone, I got 5 random messages from people, Bahamas, United Kingdom, California, Canada, all listen to a podcast that I've been on, and they share me just how important it was for them to hear my message, and that they were thanking me so much for being so honest and transparent, and they wished me well, and it just what a humbling experience that is to get a message that I know that just from me being truthful and honest and sharing my story that I'm helping people, and no amount of money could ever top that.
Mm.
It's a feeling that just fills my heart, man. It really does.
And thank you for sharing it again today here on Mindful Men. But we're almost done, but I always like to finish this off with a bit of a feel good for you. So I'd love for you to plug something that makes you feel good. And it doesn't have to be anything that's related to what we've talked about today, but it could be something that you're watching on TV or listening to or reading or anything. So what's something that makes you feel good, mate?
Diet and fitness have changed my life. To be honest with you, eating properly and physically working out spikes your endorphins, your dopamine, your self confidence, your inner peace. It's a form of therapy for me. No matter what I went through during the day, when I go and I step into that gym and I start working out and start sweating, it really does relieve a lot of stress that goes throughout the day. Because even though I'm very positive now, days still happen. There's still days when things aren't that good, but working out has been such a big part for my sobriety. It really has. And I make sure again when I do something, I'm doing 100%. I don't work out and then go to McDonald's and eat crappy food. I eat nothing but really good food. What you put in your body is what you get out. And it's like you can't have a race car and put 87 unleaded in it. You got to fill it with ethanol, octane, and some nitrous in there. So I make sure I properly eat, and sleep is so important. A lot of people don't get enough sleep, and that is so important for your mental health as well. I make sure no matter what, my minimum amount of sleep is 7 hours. If not, I get 8 to 8.5 every night. And if I'm well rested, I'm ready for the day. And when I wake up in the morning, the thing that gets me going every single morning, no matter what, before my feet hit the bed, I list 5 things that I'm truly grateful for. So I know I start my day in a positive mental state. And throughout the day, I remind myself how to be grateful for things. And if something happens that I can't control, I say the serenity prayer, and I let it go. I don't hold on to it. The last thing I want to say is starting this week, I'm a partner with a 501c nonprofit organization called Rockstar Testimony. Today is our first day for open Zoom call meetings, and they're open to the public. And my day is Thursday, and I'll be doing men's mental health and addiction. And I'll be posting it on Instagram, and anybody can use the link and come on at 7 p.m. It's an open discussion for men to come on and share their stories or ask for help or just want to listen and hopefully get some questions answered or just feel as if they're not alone. So that's good. That's starting this on the 7th this week, and I'll be hosting that for the men at 7 p.m. And I'm gonna put that link up on my Instagram, so it's free to anybody and it's open, and you can just pop on and check it out.
Wonderful. And I'll grab the links to everything we've talked about, like your page and that, and we'll put it in the show notes as well. So if anyone's listening to this, they can touch base with you if they want to as well at any stage. But Tim, thanks so much for coming on and sharing your story. It's amazing story, and it's powerful, and I hope you feel good now that you've told it again for the 60th time on a podcast. I feel good for you having been here. So thanks so much.
Yeah, and I couldn't think of a better day to do my 18-month sobriety date, man. It was awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Simon.
Well, that's a wrap for today's episode, and I hope you got some value from it. If anything triggered your mental health today, please reach out to your support networks. Also, if you loved what you heard, be sure to subscribe to the show and share it with your mates. For more from Mindful Men, you can check us out on Instagram and YouTube, and I'll throw the links to these pages in the show notes below. But until next time, stay mindful.